She used to call him, my boy, until I heard her moan his name through the wall. I used to think betrayal came loud, a slammed door, a suitcase wheeled down the driveway, maybe even a screaming match you'd later regret. But in my case, it began with laughter. Not the cruel kind. Not even the flirty kind. Just soft, effortless laughter from the kitchen, the kind you'd normally be grateful for in a home that had once known too much silence. Claire's laugh used to be my favorite sound in the world. It was gentle, like water over stones, never forced, always precise, like she knew the weight of every word and only let joy out in small, curated doses. I thought that meant she was wise. Mysterious. Maybe even deep. Now, I realize she was just hiding something. My name's Daniel. I'm 46. I live in a quiet suburb where the grass grows too fast and the neighbors wave without ever learning your name. 3 years ago, I married Claire, 10 years younger, effortlessly charming, no kids of her own. It was a second chance for both of us. She called it our clean slate. I had a son from my first marriage, Aaron. He was 17 when Claire moved in. One of those transitional ages where boys smell like aftershave and cereal at the same time. Claire, to her credit, handled him beautifully. Joking, teasing, cooking for him like it came naturally. She started calling him my boy after the first month. At the time, I found it endearing. I even told my coworker how lucky I was, that my new wife and my teenage son actually liked each other. Most step-parents can't get that, I said, half boasting, half grateful. But now, I think I missed what was right in front of me. Back then, weekends followed a comforting pattern. I'd mow the lawn. Aaron would sleep in until noon. Claire would sit on the porch with a book and a coffee, her legs tucked beneath her like a child, her oversized sweater slipping down one shoulder. We looked like a catalog family. One Saturday morning, I came inside from the yard, sweat still sticking to my back, and heard them laughing in the kitchen. It stopped me in the hallway. Not because they were laughing, but because of how natural it sounded. How private. Claire was wearing one of my old button-down shirts, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Aaron was standing beside her, towel over his shoulders from basketball practice. She was making him a smoothie. He said something, too low for me to catch, and she burst out laughing. Then she swatted his arm and said, "Stop it, you flirt." The word landed in me sideways. A flirt. I stepped into the room, and they both looked up. Aaron gave me a nod. "Hey, Dad." Claire smiled like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe." I smiled back, but my brain was still playing the word on a loop. Flirt. It wasn't the meaning that struck me, it was how comfortably it came out of her mouth. Like it had been said before. That night, I couldn't sleep. Claire dozed beside me, arm draped lazily across my chest. But I stared at the ceiling, trying to push that laugh out of my head. The next day, something happened I haven't told anyone. Claire left her phone on the bathroom counter while she showered. It buzzed, one of those soft, short vibrations meant to go unnoticed. But I looked. It was a message from Aaron. "You still up?" Just that. 3 words. Sent at 1:12 a.m. Harmless. Maybe. I wanted to believe that. But our bedrooms are just down the hall from each other. There's no reason for a 17-year-old to text his stepmom at that hour unless something was already blurring the lines. I held the phone in my hand a little too long. She stepped out of the shower wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, skin flushed. When she saw me holding it, she paused. "Looking for something?" she asked, casual, too casual. Saw a message come in. She took the phone gently. Probably my sister. Her sister lives in Portland. 3 hours behind us. But she never texts after 9, Claire said that 100 times. Still, I didn't challenge her. I just nodded. Okay. She walked past me without another word, humming softly under her breath. She always hummed when she wanted things to feel normal. That night, I heard a door creak open just past 2 a.m. Our house is old. The floors groan when you shift your weight wrong. And I've lived here long enough to know the difference between an old board and a secret step. I got up and stood in the hallway, barely breathing. The doors were closed. The hallway was still. But something felt off. Like the air itself was trying to keep a secret from me. The next morning, Claire was already in the kitchen, hair up in a bun, no makeup, humming again. She had coffee waiting, just the way I like it, 2 sugars, no cream. She handed it to me without turning around. "Aaron still asleep?" I asked. "Yeah. He was up late. College apps, maybe." But I knew she was lying. Aaron had already gotten into 2 schools. We'd celebrated at that expensive Italian place she loved. There were no applications left to write. He wasn't up late with essays. He was up with her. I didn't say anything. Not that day. Not the next. But something inside me had already shifted. A quiet unraveling. Threads pulling loose, one by one. Still, I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. And I was willing to wait for it. Claire had a book club on Thursday nights. At least, that's what she called it. She'd leave around 7:30, dressed in jeans and one of those floaty blouses she only wore when she wanted to look casual but noticed. She carried a bottle of wine and a paperback novel, usually something with wilted roses or a woman standing alone on a cliff. That week, she kissed me lightly on the cheek before heading out. "Don't wait up," she said with a smile. "We're finishing early, but I might stop at Target." It was the same line she used last month, word for word. The door clicked shut. Silence returned. I stood there for a second longer than necessary. Then turned. Aaron was on the couch, watching some sci-fi movie with the volume low. He didn't look up. I walked over and sat in the armchair across from him. "You doing anything tonight?" I asked. He shrugged. "Nah. Just chilling." I hesitated. "Claire said you were up late working on college stuff. That true?" His eyes flicked up, fast. Then he leaned back and crossed one leg over the other, feigning comfort. "Yeah. Sort of. Just browsing programs." She helped a bit. She helped. He nodded too quickly. "She's good at research." I watched him for a moment longer, and he knew it. He drummed his fingers along the remote. "You okay?" I smiled. "Just tired." We sat in silence for a while, the glow of the screen casting shadows on our walls. At some point, I stood and went out to the garage, not to do anything, just to breathe. The air out there always smelled like dust and metal, and for some reason, it helped. That night, around 10:15, Claire came home. No Target bags. No lipstick. Her eyes were glassy, like she'd been crying or laughing too hard. "Hey," she said, dropping her keys in the bowl. "Movie night?" "Yeah," I replied from the hallway. Aaron picked something loud and complicated. She smiled at that. "Sounds like him." I watched her head upstairs. Her steps were a little too light. Her hum too cheerful. I followed, quietly. In the bathroom mirror, she paused. Not to fix her hair. Not to brush her teeth. She just stood there, staring at herself. She touched her lips, then the base of her throat. Like she was checking for something invisible. I backed away before she noticed me. Returned to the living room and turned the TV back on. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. And sometime after 1 a.m., I heard movement. Floorboards, soft, but there. Then the faintest whisper of a door easing shut. I got up. Stood in the hallway. Waited. Erin's door was closed. Claire's was too. But I could still feel the wrongness, thick in the air, like heat from a fire long since put out. The next morning, I got up early and made coffee. Claire was already in the kitchen, hair damp, sweater hanging loose off one shoulder, humming something tuneless. She handed me a mug without turning around. Morning. Erin came down 5 minutes later. No shirt again. He mumbled, "Chef Claire," kissed her on the cheek, and reached for a slice of toast. I said nothing. Just watched. That's when it hit me, they had a rhythm now. A shared timing I was no longer part of. After breakfast, Claire left to run errands. Erin stayed in his room. I went back upstairs, not sure what I was looking for. But in the laundry basket in the hallway, the one Claire always kept off limits for some reason, I found a crumpled receipt tucked into the pocket of her coat. It wasn't from the bookstore. It wasn't from Target. It was from a boutique hotel 10 minutes away. Timestamped, Thursday, 8:41 p.m. 2 glasses of wine. 1 plate of tiramisu. 1 room. Paid in cash. My hands were trembling. I folded it back and slid it into my wallet like a piece of evidence. That night, I didn't confront her. Instead, I followed the plan I'd been quietly building in my head for days. I drove across town to a small electronics store. Told the clerk I needed a discreet camera. Night vision. Motion detection. He didn't ask why. Just rang it up, bagged it, and handed me a small box that didn't look like much. It felt too light to carry the weight of truth. Back home, I waited until Claire took a long bath and Erin was on a call in the backyard. Then I installed the camera, just above the hallway thermostat, where the light from the sconce would cast minimal reflection. Perfect angle of Claire's door, Erin's, and everything in between. When I tested it, the screen showed only quiet, ordinary space. But I knew better now. Even ordinary spaces can hold monsters. That night, nothing happened. But I knew it was coming. I just didn't know how much it would hurt. The first night, I sat in the garage with my laptop open, the camera feed humming softly in the corner of the screen. Claire was in bed by 10, curled on her side, back to me. Erin's door stayed shut. Nothing happened. The second night was the same. Stillness. Doors closed. A normal, quiet house. But by the third night, something shifted. It was 1:08 a.m. when Claire stepped into the hallway. She was barefoot, her steps silent. Wearing a hoodie, gray and oversized, not one of mine. I recognized it immediately. The faded, State Champs print. Erin's old school sweatshirt. She didn't check her phone. Didn't look around. She walked straight to his door and paused. 3 soft knocks. Deliberate. The door opened. He stood shirtless in the doorway, like he expected her. She stepped inside. The door closed. The time stamp on the camera, 1:09 a.m. I sat in the dark watching that screen like it was a confession. The hallway stayed empty for 13 minutes. When she finally re-emerged, her hair was a mess. Her face unreadable. She didn't look toward the camera. She didn't even hesitate. Just walked back to our bedroom like a ghost slipping into someone else's skin. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, surrounded by tools and silence, feeling something break clean inside me. Something that wouldn't grow back the same. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing had happened. Eggs. Toast. Coffee. Claire came down around 9, wearing the same sweatshirt. She stretched and kissed my cheek. "Smells amazing," she said. I forced a smile and poured her coffee. Erin appeared 10 minutes later, hair tousled, rubbing his eyes. He gave her the same morning kiss on the cheek. Called her Chef Claire again. She laughed and handed him a plate like it was any other day. Like she hadn't just spent part of the night behind his door. I watched them both. Every gesture. Every glance. They moved around each other like partners in a silent dance I no longer knew the steps to. Later that day, I told Claire I needed to go to the bank. I drove around for an hour with no destination, just the need to be away from that house. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe near the mall. I sat there, staring at my phone, rewatching that footage again and again. When I finally went inside, the cashier said something that stopped me cold. "Your wife was just here," she said with a smile. "With your son, right? The tall one?" I blinked. "What?" "Yeah, they were just grabbing drinks. Looked like they were shopping. They left maybe 10 minutes ago." I nodded, left my order half paid, and walked out. I didn't call Claire. I didn't text Aaron. I just drove straight home, parked a few houses down, and waited. 30 minutes later, Claire's car pulled into the driveway. The passenger seat was empty. Aaron came out of the house a few minutes after, wearing the same hoodie from the night before, earbuds in. They had separate cars. But they'd clearly come back together. I stayed in mine until the lights went out. Back inside, I went to the laundry basket again. Same off-limits one in the hallway. This time, I didn't find a receipt. I found a lipstick stain. On the inside collar of the hoodie. It wasn't a bold red, Claire never wore that shade. But I recognized it. Soft rose. Subtle. Her favorite. She kept it in the drawer by her nightstand, said it made her feel effortless. I sat on the stairs with that hoodie in my lap for a long time, not moving. The house creaked around me like it was breathing. That night, I didn't go to the garage. I didn't need the camera. The truth was already everywhere. On fabric. In glances. In the way Claire hummed too cheerfully when the silence got heavy. But still, I watched. And I waited. The next night, the camera gave me something worse. At 1:03 a.m., Claire didn't knock. She walked straight into Aaron's room. The door stayed open for 5 minutes. Then closed. The day after I saw Claire walk straight into Aaron's room without knocking, the house changed. Not in a way you could measure. The walls didn't shift. The furniture stayed in place. But the air, it was heavier. Like it knew. Claire floated through the morning like nothing happened. She made French toast, sprinkled cinnamon on top the way Aaron liked. When he came downstairs, t-shirt inside out, hair damp, she greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Eat before it gets cold," she said, sliding the plate toward him. He didn't look at me once. I couldn't eat. My stomach felt like a fist. I sipped coffee and watched the two of them talk about a show they'd apparently started watching together, one I'd never heard of. I used to be part of these conversations. Now I was background noise. After breakfast, Claire disappeared upstairs. Aaron stood at the counter, scrolling his phone. I knew I had to say something. "You free later?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked up, guarded. "Why?" "Figured we could grab lunch. Just us." He hesitated. "I've got practice." I waited. Then he added, "Maybe after." But we both knew he wouldn't show. I nodded anyway. "All right. Let me know." He grabbed his bag and left without another word. Claire came down a few minutes later, changed into a sundress, the soft blue one she wore when she wanted to seem light. Harmless. "I'm heading to the bookstore," she said, grabbing her keys. "Need anything?" I shook my head. "No. I'm good." She paused in the doorway, like she wanted to add something. But then just smiled and left. I waited 10 minutes. Then went to our bedroom. She hadn't taken her purse. Just her phone. But what caught my eye was the small gift bag on the nightstand. White tissue paper peeking out. Claire's handwriting on the tag. It said, "For you. Just because." See. I pulled back the paper. Inside was a folded black hoodie, new. Tag still on. Aaron's size. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it like it was ticking. By the time I heard the front door again, I was back downstairs, pretending to look through the mail. Claire walked in with a latte and a thin bookstore bag. "Found that poetry book you liked," she said, holding it out. I took it without answering. She kissed my cheek, then headed toward the stairs. That night, Aaron wore the new hoodie. He didn't mention it. Neither did she. They just existed in the same orbit, speaking in half sentences, glances, and inside jokes. I watched from across the room, feeling like a ghost in my own home. When Claire went to bed, I followed 10 minutes later. She was already under the covers, facing the wall. I slipped in beside her, unsure if she was asleep. Then she whispered, "You've been quiet." "I'm just tired," I said. She reached for my hand under the blanket. "I love you." Her voice didn't tremble. Her fingers were warm. But I couldn't bring myself to say it back. Because love shouldn't feel like holding on to something that's already gone. I'd been telling myself that seeing was believing. That the camera would confirm what my gut had whispered for weeks. But I was wrong. It wasn't what I saw that destroyed me. It was what I heard. It was around 2 a.m. when I opened the laptop in the garage again. I hadn't looked in a few days. I couldn't. Watching her step into his room once had been enough. Seeing it again would be self-inflicted. But something made me check. Maybe I already knew the truth would never stay quiet. The hallway was empty. Still. The timestamp read 1:57 a.m. Then, movement. Claire stepped out of our bedroom, barefoot, hair tied up in a messy knot. She wore one of his t-shirts again, the hem barely reaching mid-thigh. She didn't look around this time. She didn't knock. She opened Aaron's door and slipped inside. The hallway went still. I waited. Seconds stretched. Then, the sound. Faint. Almost like static. Except it wasn't. It was a moan. Short. Soft. Female. Then silence. I paused the footage. Sat motionless, the screen casting cold light across my face. It didn't matter what excuses she'd come up with. It didn't matter what lies they'd tell. The truth was now embedded in my ears. Unshakable. I closed the laptop slowly and set it aside. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't falter. I felt, still. Numb. Like grief had skipped the pain and gone straight to erosion. The next morning, I said nothing. Claire was already downstairs, sipping coffee like she hadn't just erased every version of our marriage. Aaron was at the table, scrolling his phone. Hoodie on. I poured my coffee and sat across from them, the silence as thick as the steam rising from my cup. Claire asked what I wanted for dinner. I told her I wasn't hungry. She said maybe we could watch something tonight. I said I'd be working late. Aaron didn't speak at all. After they left, Claire to yoga, Aaron to school, I stepped outside to clear my head. That's when Linda, our neighbor, waved from across the lawn. "Morning," she called out. I nodded. She tilted her head. "You okay? You look like you haven't slept." I gave a weak smile. "Been a rough week." She hesitated. Then said something that froze me. "Your wife and son, they make a cute pair." I saw them coming back from the market the other day. Laughing about something. Looked so close. I said nothing. She must have noticed my face shift, because she quickly added, I just thought it was nice. Not all families blend like that. I thanked her, forced a goodbye, and walked back inside. My hands were in fists. I wasn't angry at Linda. I was angry that even strangers saw something I didn't want to name. Inside, the house felt colder. Like it was waiting for the confrontation too. I went back to the garage. Turned on the laptop. Rewatched the footage. Every second. Every flicker of movement. Every whisper I could pick out. Then I opened a drawer and took out a small black USB. Slid it in. Downloaded the clip. Labeled it. Then I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't sure what I was preparing for. But I knew one thing now. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a fracture. A rot. And I was done pretending I didn't smell it. The day I confronted Claire didn't start with shouting. No accusations. No drama. It began with toast. She had just come out of the shower, hair wrapped in a towel, wearing one of my old t-shirts, not Aaron's, for once. Her skin still carried the warmth of steam. She smiled from the doorway like nothing was wrong. "Coffee's ready," she said. "Come down when you're up." I watched her walk away. It was strange, how ordinary she looked. How calmly she moved around the ruins she didn't think I could see. I waited a few minutes. Let her settle in. Then I followed. She was standing at the kitchen island, stirring cream into her mug. Aaron wasn't downstairs yet. Perfect. I sat across from her, laid the USB drive on the counter between us. She looked at it. Didn't touch it. Didn't ask. Just froze. "Claire," I said quietly. "Are you in love with him?" Her breath caught. It was slight. Barely visible. But I saw it. She turned, slowly, like someone walking into a storm they knew was coming. "Dan. Don't lie." She didn't. Not at first. Then she crossed her arms. A defense mechanism she used when she felt exposed. "He's just a kid. He's 18. Silence. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't blink. I just let it hang. She looked down at the USB again. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I watched it," I said. "All of it. Still nothing. You wore his sweatshirt. Walked into his room. Stayed 13 minutes. And I heard you." Her knees gave slightly, and she sat, not like someone choosing to sit, but like someone surrendering to gravity. Her hands trembled. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. I exhaled through my nose. That's what people always say when they've already decided to do it. She blinked fast, eyes glassy. "I thought it was a phase. He was lonely. And I. And you what?" My voice sharpened. "You filled the silence with your body. You climbed into his space because it was easier than facing your own emptiness." Her head dropped. I hated myself for saying it. But not enough to take it back. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "You and Aaron, you never let me in. I was always just, between you. Like a placeholder." I leaned forward. "So you stepped into the space between a father and a son, and you poisoned it?" She didn't look up. "I was lonely too," she whispered. And there it was. The justification dressed as confession. The dagger wrapped in sadness. "You didn't just betray me, Claire. You shattered him." She looked confused. "You think this ends when I ask you to leave?" I went on. "You think he walks away untouched? You didn't save him from loneliness. You carved confusion into the one place he was supposed to feel safe. Tears slipped down her cheeks now. Quiet. No sobs. No apologies. Just water from a place too deep to name. But I didn't move to comfort her. She had forfeited that right. I stood. She looked up. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to let you leave with whatever dignity you still have." She flinched at that. Not because it was cruel. Because it was true. I pointed to the hallway. 1 hour. She stood slowly. Wiped her face. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. She walked upstairs without another word. 20 minutes later, she came down with a tote bag and her keys. No suitcases. No farewell. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look back. The door closed behind her like the final click of a lock I'd left open too long. And just like that, she was gone. The morning after Claire walked out, the house felt unfamiliar. Not emptier, just wrong. Like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for someone to pretend it hadn't happened. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug that had long since gone cold. Across from me, her chair was still slightly pulled out. There was a faint ring from her coffee cup on the wood. I didn't wipe it away. Upstairs, Erin's door stayed shut. I heard movement once. Soft footsteps. A drawer opening. Then nothing. It wasn't until just after noon that he came down. Sweatpants. T-shirt. Eyes dull. He moved slowly, like gravity had doubled overnight. He didn't look at me right away. He walked to the kitchen, poured cereal like always, stood at the counter. Eventually, he spoke. "She's gone," I said. He nodded. "I know." That was it. No questions. No excuses. No shock. Just that quiet, unbearable acceptance. I wanted to ask so many things. Why he didn't stop it. When it started. What she told him to make it feel okay. But instead, I said, I should have seen it sooner. He swallowed his bite. Didn't answer. Then, after a moment, I should have stopped it. I looked at him. Not as a son. Not as a man. Just as someone I no longer knew. "You're not innocent," I said. He nodded again. "I know." He set the bowl down. The spoon clinked. "I didn't seduce her," he said. Quiet. Steady. "I didn't say you did." He turned then. Finally met my eyes. And for the first time in weeks, there was no defiance. No smirk. Just exhaustion. The kind you don't sleep off. Then came the question I had been avoiding. The one that had been eating through my chest from the inside out. Did you love her? The silence between us cracked like ice under weight. Erin didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He just said, "I don't know." And somehow, that hurt more than yes. He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He just left his half-eaten bowl on the counter and walked back upstairs. No slam of the door. No footsteps pounding the stairs. Just the sound of a house still bleeding, quietly, invisibly. I didn't follow. Because what do you say to a son when the woman you both loved left pieces of herself in each of you, and none of those pieces fit anymore? After that morning in the kitchen, Erin and I stopped speaking. Not in anger, just because there was nothing left to say. He stayed in the house for another few weeks. Moved through it like a tenant waiting for the lease to end. We passed each other in doorways. Ate in silence. Lived beside one another, not with. I caught glimpses sometimes, him sitting in the garage, holding her old sweatshirt. The gray one she used to wear on lazy Sunday mornings. He didn't cry. Just held it like something sacred. Or toxic. Maybe both. Then, one morning, it was gone. I didn't ask where. Didn't need to. He applied to a college 3 states away. Didn't tell me until he'd already been accepted. He left 2 weeks later. The night before, he knocked on my door once. Just once. When I opened it, he didn't step inside. He looked at me, just looked, like he was trying to memorize my face one last time. Then he gave a small nod. That was his goodbye. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what forgiveness looked like. Silent. Incomplete. Unfinished. After he left, the house finally exhaled. Not in relief. Not in grief. Just release. I started moving again. Slowly. I sold Claire's car. Donated her books. Took down the photo of us at Lake Louise. Didn't burn it. Just put it in a box and shoved it to the back of a dark closet. I started cooking for myself. Walking more. I even learned how to make sourdough like every other newly divorced man trying to prove he's fine. Linda, the neighbor, brought over muffins one morning. Said she was just being friendly. It wasn't a romance. Just kindness. And for now, that was enough. Then, today, 13 months since Claire left, I saw her. In the bread aisle of a quiet supermarket. She turned at the same moment I did. For a second, she froze. Not in fear. Not in guilt. Just surprise. She wore a long beige coat. Hair tied back. A new purse on her shoulder. And a man's hand in hers. Younger than me. Smiling. Oblivious. She didn't speak. Neither did I. We just stood there, 2 ghosts passing at the edge of memory. Then she gave me the faintest nod. Not cruel. Not regretful. Just, human. And I nodded back. I didn't feel anger. Or longing. Or loss. I didn't feel anything at all. Just peace. The kind that comes after everything has broken, and you finally stop trying to put it back together. She passed by with her cart. And I kept walking. Out the door. Into sunlight. Into a life I hadn't met yet. But one, I realized, that had finally begun.